episode of Search It Up with Sienna, the web series where I use IMDb to discover and talk about all different types of movies and TV shows, and how the people in front of and behind the camera not only make it all possible, but are somehow all interconnected. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite shows ever, The Simpsons. It's been running for 32 seasons. Let me repeat, 32 seasons! That's almost 700 episodes! Seriously, almost 700 episodes! And in fact, it's the longest running scripted TV series ever! It first appeared on The Tracy Ullman Show and then made its debut on their series in 1989. I have two very special guests joining me. They've basically been working on The Simpsons since day one. On part one of today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Mike B. Anderson, the director, who tells me about how it was like to direct animated characters. And on part two of today's episode, I'm going to be talking to the editor of The Simpsons, Don Barroso, who tells me the long and exciting process of putting The Simpsons together. For those of you who haven't heard of The Simpsons, it's loved by so many people, adults and kids, because it's so funny but also really smart. It's about this family, Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, and they go through all kinds of normal family adventures. Well, sort of. Sometimes they get really annoyed with each other. Sometimes they get really upset with each other. But at the end of the day, they all learn some sort of lesson that brings them together. Homer, the father, is voiced by Dan Castellaneta. Marge, the mother, is voiced by Julie Kavner. Bart, the son, is voiced by Nancy Cartwright, who also gives the voice to Maggie, the baby. And Lisa, the middle child, is voiced by Yardley Smith. Mike B. Anderson has directed some of my favorites, including Marge's Sun Poisoning and The President Wore Pearls. He won 2 Emmy Awards for directing Homer's Phobia in 1997 and Home R in 2001. For Homer's Phobia, he also won the Annie Award for Best Individual Achievement, directing in a TV production. Mike was also a sequence director on The Simpsons movie and was the supervising director on The Simpsons ride at Universal Studios. He was actually animated in the Secret War of Lisa Simpson episode as Cadet Anderson. Now, without further ado, here's my interview with Mike B. Anderson. How did you get started in animation and television?
I have been into animation my whole life. When I was a kid, we didn't have VCRs or DVRs, and I'd wheel a television in from my father's den, and I'd watch Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner Hour next to Space Ghost, so I could watch 2 shows at once. I just loved animation, and I was actually living in Los Angeles working on live action movies, and I saw The Simpsons, and I just flipped out over it. Because I draw like that, because I wanted to be in animation, not live action. And I went and applied, and that was back in 1989. So
that's so cool. And did you always want to direct, or what was your dream when you were a kid?
Oh, when I was a kid, I didn't know what directing was, but I loved telling stories. And telling stories with film or with animation or any kind of art form like that is very exciting. So that's how I got into it. I was a movie nut when I was a kid. That's what you reminded me of myself a little bit. You're obviously into the nuts and bolts of making movies and animation, and it's the greatest thing. You know, that's what drove me. So
that's so interesting. Yeah, I definitely agree. I love to look at movies and TV shows, and after I've watched them before, just see, wow, people made this amazing show and this amazing movie. And how is directing an animated TV series different than directing a live action TV series?
Right, that's a good question. In essence, it's kind of the same. You're still telling the story, but in live action, you would say, stand over there, say these lines, then walk over there, the camera will follow you, and we'll do a close-up on Homer. So that's a shot. If it was in live action, there'd be a human there, and I'd say, okay, you're going to be right there, deliver your lines, then walk over to here, Only in animation, we have to draw it. So that's the part that makes it more cumbersome, but it's still acting and telling stories. And I love telling stories. I love making people laugh. I was kind of the class clown. And now I work on a show that's all about laughs, and I love it.
And do you work with the actors and also the editors from production to post-production?
I'm supervising director of the animation, and I get involved in all levels of the show production right from the start when it's a script turned into a storyboard. And then I work with editors who assemble a animatic, we call them. It's a black and white bare bones skeleton of the show. I don't work with the actors in as much as I direct them. I work with script writers over at Fox, and they write the stories and they cast them, and I'll go over there and watch them record and give my 2 cents, and I meet them, and I know all the actors. The Simpson voice talent is amazing, and they're all beautiful people. So it's a great family. And so I work with them, and I do work with editors, and I do work with all manners of production just to keep these shows running. You know, since COVID started, we are all working at home. This is my office now. And working at home means we all have to communicate, but we all know what we're doing. So it works fine. And we've produced about 7 or 8 shows now since COVID without ever going into the office. So
wow.
Yeah, so I communicate with all the people whenever they need me to answer a question. It always has to do with animation. But if it was my own show, I would direct the actors, but I work for Fox, and they have brilliant writers and directors over there that work with the voice talent. And the voice talent is so good, and they know their characters so well. They add so much to the performance. And when you're watching them do it, the first time I went, I had to put a pillow over my face because I was laughing so hard. It's so strange to see a man talk like Homer, but Dan Castellaneta is wonderful. They're all wonderful. I love the voice talent.
And I can see how working from home with like doing this animation can be a little bit easier than working from home with like doing a live action thing, because they can like the actors can record their voice at home and then like send it, and then like and then you can like do everything from home. So I can see how it'd be easier than doing like shooting a TV show at home with like everybody on Zoom.
Yeah, that's you've got it figured out. That is the problem. That is everybody wants to be safe with COVID, and so when live people get together too close, you have to protect yourself and do things considering that. But in animation, it's fine. Just talk to somebody, then draw the picture.
Definitely. And you've worked on the Simpsons. You've worked on a Simpson movie too. In the process, was it different directing like the animated movie of The Simpsons than it was directing the TV show of The Simpsons?
Yes, it was very different. For one thing, you have to tell the story in a bigger way. But the biggest deal was that, before the movie, The Simpsons was what's called 4:3. It's a little square for the old televisions. You've seen images where the sides are cut off. That's the way The Simpsons was produced. But the movie was going to be widescreen. And so suddenly we had this wide picture, and a lot of Simpson humor is based on people coming into the frame at the right time or widening to what they see. But now when we widen, it went this far. So we had to get used to it, and it was really hard at first. But then as we got into it, no different. And now the TV show is in widescreen too, and it's beautiful, But those old ones are so awesome. You've been watching the old ones, right?
I have actually watched all the seasons. I'm all caught up. It was probably like about 11 months ago. It's almost been a year, and I watched season 1 through 30 on Disney Plus, and then season 31 on Amazon Prime, and then I'm just recording season 32 on my television and watching it.
Yeah, we just showed the Halloween show finally in November.
I know. I just watched it today. Actually, it was so good.
Good one, yeah. We're very proud of it. So. And
like you were saying about how like it became a widescreen, and how it used to be like a little screen. I actually have the spot where the picture, like the intro and like the image of the characters gets better. It was season 20, episode 10. Is the intro, and like the picture got more, I think it was HD it became, and it got like brighter and like
higher resolution. And we have a lot now that when we started the show, we just drew on paper, same as all the animations. And then when we went to digital, we still hand draw it, but we draw it on a computer instead of a piece of paper.
Mhm.
And that's a great tool because we can watch animation in a few minutes after you've done a few drawings. So
Yeah.
it's a great tool, and I personally like it. And since we're doing it that way, that's a reason working at home works too. So
Do you have a favorite episode of The Simpsons?
let's see. People ask that question. I have a lot of favorites
I know, same.
of my own that I've directed, and I have favorites of other kinds. I directed the Hank Scorpio show.
Oh, I do remember that one.
Yeah, You Only Move Twice, it was called, and that's one of my absolute favorites. And I've gotten a lot of praise for that one. I recently, 2 years ago, directed. It was called Halloween of Horror with Lisa. It was about Halloween, but not the Treehouse of Horror episode.
I think
Did you see that one?
I think I
Lisa
did.
she gets scared at school, and so she doesn't want to celebrate Halloween anymore. And Marge is Homer's taking care of her, but these three
Yes,
guys
that.
are bothering them. Yeah. So I directed that one, and I love that. It won an Annie Award, and so I'm very proud of that one. So that might be one of my favorite shows right now is the Lisa, the Halloween of Horror. Not Treehouse of Terror, Halloween of Horror.
I remember they had a Thanksgiving of Horror. I think it was in season 31 too, and that I was pretty surprised about. I thought that was kind of cool too.
Where they gobble instead of talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, we know them so well, we get it. That's what's beautiful about animation is just the personality that you can put into a character in a performance. That would be a difference with live action too. You'd have to tell someone, look, be sad, but then get happy. And with Simpsons, they do that all the time. They get happy, then sad, then happy, then sad, and
And it's probably a little bit harder to animate and direct the Treehouse of Horrors because aren't they mixing it up with different costumes and they look different, so you have to kind of start from scratch and you have to add different hair, add different outfits, and is it a lot of more work?
Well, when we do a regular show, you start from scratch. You have to design all the settings, the locations, the vehicles, the props, the costumes, hair, like you said, if it has certain needs. In a Halloween show, we tell 3 stories, so you have to do that 3 times, even though it's a shorter segment.
Yeah.
So it's 3 times the work in terms of design. In terms of directing it, it's just really ambitious storytelling. They do such giant things, but that's what's fun about drawing it is that we get to do amazing things that in life wouldn't be as easy, but animation, you can do anything.
Definitely. And do you have a favorite character or a character you most relate to on the show?
Oh boy, you got me on that one because I was going to bark out my name, but then I don't relate to him. I love Mr. Burns.
Oh, yeah.
I love Mr. Burns just because he's one of the richest men in the world, and he lives in Springfield, and he's such a bumbler, and he's so funny, and how old-fashioned he is. I just laugh every time with him. So I love. Oddly enough, I think the character I relate most to is Lisa. I just love Lisa, and Yardley Smith does her voice, and I've done some great shows. I did The President Wore Pearls, where Lisa ran for president of the school, and she sang.
Oh, yeah.
Like Evita. That was so much fun to see Yardley sing as Lisa. And Lisa's inquisitiveness and her questioning things and always trying to do right. I just like it. I try to do right. I try to be a good guy,
Yeah, I definitely agree that I probably am most like Lisa too. Probably because I like to read like she does, and I like to study for stuff. So that's probably one thing that I think I have very in common with Lisa. And the show has so many famous guest stars over the years. I mean, when I look on the cast and crew on IMDb, it takes me 5 minutes to scroll down the cast because there's so many. Is there any of particular guest stars that you remember meeting that was the most memorable for you?
Well, you wouldn't know much about this, but John Waters was an episode in Homer's Phobia that I directed, and that was one of my favorite shows too. John Waters is a filmmaker. He makes culty, strange films, but he also made Hairspray, and is very mainstream in some ways. But he's a wonderful person. I met him. We became friends, and we even tried to do a show together.
Wow.
And It didn't go yet, but I don't know. Maybe we'll make it happen. He's wonderful. So he was so much fun to watch record. But I love them all. Any actor that I Werner Herzog is another one. He was just in a new episode we're working on. He's a German film director who has become a voice talent and an actor, and he's wonderful. You might have saw him in The Mandalorian if you.
Oh yes, I watched that.
Yeah, he's one of those emperor type guys. I think he got. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't watched it, but he's a great guy, and I love Anne Hathaway. Was amazing. She sang at a table read. We used to do these table reads where about 60 or 70 of us would get together and the actors would read the script and we'd sit and laugh. And it was such a great thing. Now we have to do that on Zoom. It's a little different, but at least we can do it still. So
yeah, definitely. And the show has evolved a lot since we started, like we were talking about, both characters and animation. Anything you miss from the beginning? Anything else you miss? Like, for example, Homer's personality has changed. A lot of people said that he used to be very mean and then he became more dumb and stupid.
Well, they get a lot of fun out of making Homer dumb and stupid, but Homer's always genuine. He always tries to do something from his heart. And in the end, he might seem a little softer because it always ends up that he loves his family and it's a family show. You know, they love each other and that's a beautiful thing. He has changed more visually than he has in behavior, but the writing, you know, there was a couple seasons where he was pretty bumbling and just like an old comedic actor, but he's much more special than that. And his level of dumbness is almost, there's something special about it where he'll look at something a certain way and it makes total sense in his world, but to us we go, no, that doesn't make sense. So
yeah, definitely.
Homer's great, and they have evolved visually in particular. You know, if you go back to the Tracy Ullman shows and then the early Simpsons, they're pretty crude, but it's still wonderful, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned in an interview that the Treehouse of Horror was the most challenging because you had to change some of the features like we were talking about in the backdrops. Were there any other episodes that you found as challenging?
Oh boy, well, some of the challenges came because Simpsons writers, even after the show comes back, we do them about 8 or 9 months ahead of time. And then when the show comes back, they still write some new stuff and they still do new animation because they want it to be the best it can be. And so sometimes we've had stuff where a shot didn't work and we had to do it on a Friday night. That was in the old days. We had to draw it, animate it, paint cells, shoot it, get it back, put it in the mix. That was crazy because you're doing a shot the morning that it's going to show practically. And that's pretty, yeah. So Treehouses of Horror are always hard, but we also do trilogy shows. I've done one called The Wettest Stories Ever Told, where all three stories are all underwater and on the high seas and stuff. And so that was really demanding. You got 3 different ships, 3 different stories, 3 different eras. You know, they did Mutiny on the Bounty, but they mix it with Poseidon Adventure. Yeah. It's those are hard shows, but you know what? I love the work so much. I don't really think of something as hard. I just think of it as, oh, this is going to be a lot of work. How do I make this awesome?
And I remember I watched some of the Treehouse of Horrors because I started watching them. Yeah, I started watching them about a year ago. And I remember like in the beginning, in like the first episodes of the Treehouse of Horrors, Marge or like Bart would come out and they would say like, please, like, no young children watch this because it's going to be scary. And I kind of believed that first. So, like, I avoided them and I just didn't watch them for, like, 20 seasons. And then once I finished watching the rest on Disney Plus, I went back and watched them. And I was like, these are more funny than scary, to be honest.
Well, they do. Sometimes they're bloody. Sometimes they're, you know, they're supposed to be horror and play in that world. So some kids, I mean, it's beautiful that you started watching them a year ago because I have a daughter and she's older now. She's away to college, but we didn't let her start watching until about 10 years old. And
yeah, that's when I started watching them.
They affected her greatly. She became a vegetarian like Lisa, took up the saxophone.
That's so cool.
We really related to Lisa.
And do you have any Simpsons collectibles? And if you do you have any that are your favorites?
I have a lot of cells from the cell days when they were painted on acetate, and they used to give a director a cell setup. It's a background and the characters, and then it's in a little mat, and it's a scene from the show. And I love those. I have quite a few of them. I hang a few in my living room back there somewhere. But I had a bunch of collectibles. I kind of gave them away to family and friends. When someone would really like something, they go, "Oh, I wish I had that. Take it, it's yours." I give it to them. So I try not to have too many collectibles around because Simpsons is everywhere in my world. So, you know, I enjoy more seeing other people enjoy it than I do owning the stuff myself. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually, for Christmas last year, my mom and dad got me a few. I'll show you a few that I got. I have this Marge with Maggie, Sunday Best Marge with Maggie. I have Lisa.
Nice.
And I have a Bart.
Nice. Wow.
And of course, I have a Homer. I have some others, but I won't show all of them. And I have a Homer. And my favorite one, and this is the family car.
Oh, that's nice. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites, but those are probably my favorite Simpsons collectibles I have.
That's great. That's great. Oh, well, yeah. I do love the collectibles. The funnest thing is when Matt Groening has toured around the Europe and stuff like that, he would come back with a bag of stuff of bootleg Simpsons stuff that he would find from different countries.
That's
and
so
show all
cool.
these wild, strange things. And they were so cool, but you know, it's people making them themselves. And so they were a little fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I also saw that you were a supervising director on the Simpsons ride at Universal Studios. And I actually went on that ride when I was in Universal, and I loved it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and what was your experience like doing that? I mean, it was a ride. It was like you were with the Simpsons, like in this little thing, doing like a roller coaster. Like that must be a lot different than shooting the real TV series.
Well, it was very different, and it came at a time I had just been made supervisor of the show, and so I was trying to work on the TV show, but then they said, well, we got this ride, and you got to get involved in it. So I did, and that involved flying there. They had mock-up versions of it in Los Angeles and in Florida. Is it Orlando, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to fly there again and again and again, like, I don't know, 11, 12 times, and I had to fly to Texas because one company was working on it in Texas, one was working on it in Santa Monica here. And that was so hard because the Simpsons when they do the shows, it's in a constant state of evolution where if a joke doesn't work, they cut it out. Even if it's animated, they'll get rid of it. And then they'll write one that is funny or works better for the story, and they'll put that in. Mm-hmm. In the ride, it had a hard deadline. They were having openings at these parks, and so we had to do this giant amount of work, and all the traveling and all the riding. I'm kind of a car sick guy, so I don't really like to ride the crazy rides. And, you know, Simpson ride is pretty crazy, but I got used to it and I love it. But it's a little scary, especially that first part where it takes off.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was really rewarding because I worked with a couple people at Fox that are my friends, and we traveled together and wrangled this thing. And at one point, you know, as we work, we do temporary things just to, you know, sometimes it would be black and white pencil drawings instead of the big 3D that you would see. Yeah. And that would be funny. And one time I had to do the voices because Dan wasn't available. So I did Homer, and I thought I did pretty good. But when I heard it in the ride, the executives that were riding with me, they went through it, and then my voice came up and they go, "What's wrong with his voice?" I said, "Oh, it's temp. He has a cold."
And Homer's has a wide range of foods that he loves. From hamburgers and hot dogs to his cheer up kebab that contains cookie dough, sausage, and a bunch of other weird things on a stick. But we all know that Homer's two very favorite things that we see a lot in the TV show are beer and donuts. And Homer has a lot of other things he likes to eat. Do you have a favorite food that Homer likes to eat?
Well, you know, it's pretty funny. I don't eat like Homer, luckily, because I'm starting to look a little like Homer. Not this beard is a COVID beard. I never had a beard before, but I'm going to keep Santa Claus this Christmas. We had about maybe our last 5 or 6 premiere parties at Universal Studios where they have the whole Simpson land there. You know,
Yeah,
they have
I
all this.
remember having a big giant donut at Lardlad and Universal. And I remember, yeah.
Oh, nice. Those donuts are good. They're
I
too
know
good.
they're huge. They're like I didn't expect it to be that big.
So when we do those parties, I would go to Cletus's Chicken Shack and I would get a big sausage. That's some horrible name for it. It's an awful thing. I could never finish it, but it was really good, but it was too big. So, you know, I guess I always, when I go to the party, I'd always sample a little bit of food. I would always have a hot dog from, I forget what the place is called. It's Sandals Little Helper is the logo for it. But yeah, and Cletus's Chicken Shack, have some chicken or try out the sausage. I like the Krusty Burgers. Yeah, I guess you've done your homework, man. Homer eats some weird stuff, huh? That kebab was ridiculous.
I
But
know.
you've seen the episode when he was in New Orleans and it had 50 foods in 1 minute, where he was going, he ate this, he ate that, he ate this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a lot of stuff that seems like Homer wouldn't eat, but he does. So
Yeah, like talking about Homer and how he eats so much. One of my favorite episodes was in season 7, and it was called King Homer, and is when Homer gains like 100 pounds, so he can stay home, so he can stay home and work from home. And he gets like
Right.
he wears this like flower dress and like a hat. That's definitely one of my favorites.
that's a good one, yeah. And they have a doll of that too, like an action figure, like you have of Homer.
Oh, really? I think I may have heard that.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
funny.
cool.
That's the thing. It's so great. We can do anything we want to Homer, and he magically is fine. So
Yeah.
that food would knock off a normal person, but Homer, it's okay.
Yeah.
So, wow, so you've watched all of them in a year. That seems amazing to me.
Yeah, I have. And I loved every single one of them.
What do you dream about? I mean, that's like we have like 700 plus episodes,
I know.
which is 350 hours at least.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm impressed and amazed. That's great.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for doing this. It was an honor to talk to you.
Well, it was a blast talking to you. I admire you for your ambitious nature, your inquisitiveness. You put together a show. It's very fun. And I wish you all the luck with everything you do. And
Much. Yeah, I can't wait to see more Simpsons episodes.
we have some good ones coming too.
I can't wait.
Like we have one about, no, I can't tell you. Sorry. I didn't mean to tease you.
Okay. No.
You'd rather wait and see it, right?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to meet you, and good luck with your show. It's amazing, and I hope I've answered all your questions.
You have. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, you take care, and good luck with all this. All right.
Bye.
Well, good luck with everything. Bye-bye.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Anderson. I learned so much from you, and you were so smart, funny, and fun to talk to. You also gave me a different perspective on my favorite TV show. I hope you guys learned a lot too. So stay tuned for part 2 of this episode where I talk to the editor, Don Barroso. See you next time!